guys, and welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time joining me. Today I wanted to go through and talk about my labor and delivery story for my daughter Eliana. For those of you who do not know me or who are joining me for the first time, my name is Miranda. I have a 3-year-old who will be 4 in September named Eliana, and then I am currently 37, almost 38 weeks pregnant with our second baby, a little boy who will be here hopefully very soon. So with his birth coming up like right around the corner, of course, my thoughts have been going back to what it was like when I was delivering Eliana and just kind of remembering the process and what all happened and what I went through since I'm about to go through it all over again. So I know these videos are super popular, and I know I, especially with my labor coming up, have been watching a ton of like labor and delivery vlogs or labor and delivery videos, because you just, even if you've had kids before, I feel like you still sit back and you look to try to get tips and advice and just hear other people's stories about what they've personally experienced and gone through. And so that's what I wanted to come on and do. I honestly love talking about giving birth with Eliana because it's just so evident to me how like planned out it was and how just amazingly it all worked out. Honestly, like I was so incredibly blessed, and I couldn't have asked for a greater labor and delivery with her. So that's what I wanted to go through and share with you guys today, and I hope it gives you encouragement, gets you excited if you have labor and delivery coming up, knowing that, yeah, it's obviously kind of scary, especially if you've never gone through it before, but it's all for such a great cause, getting your sweet little baby in your arms. So if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate you joining the little family that we have going on here. Definitely give the video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it, and then leave comments down below for other videos that you might like to see, and let's jump in and get everything going. So my labor and delivery with Eliana was definitely worked out so well. And it was so evident to me, especially looking back on it, how much of a hand God had in everything and how he orchestrated everything and just how it all worked out. It honestly just, I love it. And I love knowing how much he cares about me and how I watched him orchestrating the labor and the delivery of my daughter. And so with her, I feel like my due date was super off. I was due September the 13th with Eliana, and I feel like it was off simply because, and I've shared it in previous videos, I have irregular cycles, and so I'm never like consistent on when I'm having cycles, and because of that, like my ovulation time frame isn't the same as somebody who has like a standard 28 or even 30-day cycle. And so when I went to the doctor, they calculate your due date and everything like that. They're basing it off of you being somebody who has a traditional, regular 28-day cycle. And so I know they were a little off with like measuring her, and there were even times where I was measuring smaller than, or like behind wherever I should have been at. And so when it came closer and closer to my due date, right, I constantly had people telling me like left and right, oh my gosh, there's no way you're gonna make it all the way to your due date, and you're gonna deliver her way earlier and all that kind of stuff. And so it got me like really, okay, yeah, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna deliver her, and it's, it's gonna be coming up soon, at like sitting there at 36, 37 weeks, I'm like, any day now. And then 38 weeks rolls along, and 39 weeks rolls along, and then 40 weeks, and then even 41 weeks. And I was like, is she ever gonna come out? I'm just curious. Like, can you be pregnant forever? That was a legitimate question. And so it definitely felt like it, especially when I sat there and I hit my due date and she still wasn't here. And then like a week after my due date, she still wasn't here. It definitely like sat in, and I was like, okay, is this kid ever coming out of me? I'm just curious. So of course, I'm going to my weekly doctor's appointments, and I think at my 40-week appointment, I want to say, yeah, it would have been my 40-week appointment when I hit my due date. My doctor talked to me about having an induction done. And my doctor, she made it super clear that it's your choice, it's your decision. But she had told me if I go and I'm hitting 42 weeks and I'm still not getting induced at that point, then she'll still see me and she'll still be my doctor, but she would write on like all my records that I'm basically going against her medical advice on not getting an induction, So I scheduled it. My 40-week appointment, I scheduled my induction. It was going to be when I hit 41 weeks. So I wanted to go another week to give her the opportunity to come into the world on her own, and she didn't. So I go to the hospital, Caleb and I, it was on a Monday. When you're getting induced, at least at my hospital that I was at, they made me go in the day before my induction was scheduled to go and do all of my paperwork, get my blood work done so that I would be ready to go the next morning, because we had to be there super early. I think it was like 5 a.m. or something like that to get everything rolling and going. So I was going to be induced that following day, which was Tuesday. So we go, we get all the paperwork done, we get my blood work done, and it was about lunchtime. And so we're leaving the hospital, and I felt so sad. I was so sad. I was so disappointed because I so badly wanted to go through labor on my own. I so badly did not want to get an induction. I had heard horror stories about inductions, and I was just really scared. But I didn't know what else to do at that point, and I was just trying to go along with what my doctor was telling me was best and was right. So it wasn't ideal, but I was gonna do it, And so we're driving, and Caleb, I think, could sense that I was really upset and that, I was not happy. I wasn't feeling, the greatest about what we had decided to do. And I had one of his family members reaching out to me, kind of telling me about going past your due date, why it's so common, and just avoiding inductions and whatnot. And so after Caleb and I discussed everything, after, listening to some friends and family members and just knowing in my heart that I did not feel right. And I know 100% it was God speaking to me and telling me, you're not making the right choice and the right decision in this moment. You need to be patient, which has always been a big struggle of mine. Just telling me to be a little bit more patient and give it a little more time. And so that's what we did. We went to lunch that day. We were talking about everything. And then when we were driving back, I called my doctor's office and I told them, I said, I want to give her one more week. I don't want to go and get my induction done tomorrow. I want to give her a little bit longer to try and come out on her own. And so the nurse that I talked with, she was like, okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and schedule you for another follow-up appointment, because I hadn't had one since I was supposed to be getting induced. So she was like, let's schedule you for a follow-up appointment. And then after that, we'll call the hospital and we'll get everything canceled. So it was like, all right, good, sounds great. So I went to an appointment, I think that following day, which was Tuesday. So I think that Tuesday I went to an appointment with my doctor. We checked. Eliana was healthy. She was doing great. And honestly, I was fine too. But she told me, go ahead and schedule an induction for the following week when I was going to hit 42 weeks. And so I did. So I scheduled it for the 42 week mark. And I was just praying and praying and praying and praying and praying. I was like, please come on your own. Please do not keep me waiting anymore. Please, 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 please. So I was already on, since I was scheduled to have my induction that Tuesday, that Monday that we had gone into the hospital was when my maternity leave had started from my job that I was at the time. And so I was already on maternity leave, basically. And I was like, there's not really any point in going back if I'm going to hopefully have her here within this next week or be induced the following week. So I was still on leave, basically. And so that Tuesday and Wednesday, I was feeling kind of odd. I can't exactly pinpoint what it was, other than now obviously I was going into labor, but I just wasn't feeling that great. And I remember, I think I had some spotting going on, and so I had called my doctor about it. I had called the office, and I spoke to one person who was like, oh, just kind of take it easy, relax and rest for a little bit if you can. And then the nurse calls me back, and this was on a Wednesday, actually, that Wednesday, and it was earlier in the day. And the nurse from the office calls me and she goes, we do not want you relaxing and resting. She was like, you're almost 42 weeks pregnant. I need you up. I need you moving. You need to be doing stuff. It's okay. You're going to be fine. And so I was like, all right. And so that's what I did. I cleaned our house that we were living in. I cleaned the entire thing. I swept, I mopped, I cleaned the bathrooms, I vacuumed, I cleaned the kitchen, dishes, everything. I cleaned that house spotless, y'all. And it felt really good. I don't know if a late term nesting had settled in, or I just knew that it would keep me up, it would keep me moving and keep me active. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna clean, let's get going. And so then that night, Caleb comes home, we went and grabbed some food, because I hadn't made dinner. And then we went for a good walk around our neighborhood as well. And I had been throughout this whole time frame like having contractions periodically, and I always was like, okay, yes, labor is happening, like, okay, she's coming now, all right. And so they would kind of go and they would develop a little bit of a pattern, and then they would taper off and go away. So it's all those early labor contractions, but this was going on consistently for a couple of weeks. And so I was like, are they Braxton Hicks? Are they, what's going on? But I was just having a lot of early labor contractions, much of what I'm going through right now. And I sat at about 2.5 centimeters dilated for several checks when I was going in for my weekly appointments with my doctor. And so I kind of was experiencing and going through some of those, and I really didn't think anything of it. I was like, it's just regular old contractions. I'm having them all, like this is happening all the time, every day. They're very inconsistent. It's like nothing's gonna come of it. So that night we go to bed. I think I woke up, I could not sleep that night, actually. I was tossing and turning, could not get comfortable. I was having contractions here and there. And it just was not, I don't know, for some reason it just was, I was super restless. Could not sleep. So I brought the ottoman from our living room into our bedroom, and I was sitting on that, kind of like leaning over it on the side of the bed, because like I could really feel these contractions at this point, and they were more painful than what I had been experiencing previously, which is kind of like those early labor contractions. And so I was, trying to get comfortable and just trying to help with like alleviating some of what I was feeling. And my contractions, they started getting pretty regular. I think they were coming like every 4 minutes at this point or so. And I remember like looking at Caleb. I had woken him up, when he was kind of sitting with me, talking to me. We were, trying to figure out if it was really labor. We were timing some of the contractions. And so they consistently lasted about every 4 minutes. For probably like a good, I don't know, like hour and a half, something like that, to where I was like, okay, I think that this might be it. And of course we were calling and texting all of our family members, and they were like, yeah, I think you should go to the hospital. So we grab our bags, get in the car, drive to the hospital, having contractions the whole way. They were pretty painful for me at this point, and I was just like, okay, this is it. This has to be it this time. So we get to the hospital, we check into triage. I had been pre-registered and everything, so it was a pretty easy process for like getting us into the point of like them checking me to see what I was at. I was about 4 centimeters dilated. I had a bulging bag of water, so I think when they say that, like they mean like my water pretty much was about to break. And so they get me hooked up to the monitors, they're checking her, they're checking me, and then they get us up to our actual room itself. And the coolest thing was is like when we got up to our room, we're getting introduced to like who our nurse is going to be for the night. It was actually a girl that I had gone to school with, and so I knew her, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had known her sister a little bit better than I had known her, but my husband, Caleb, he knew her really well, and so we had like this big reunion moment, and it was just really comforting to see that it was somebody who like we knew, we were familiar with, who was going to be taking care of us, because at this point when we got to the hospital, it was probably like 1:30 in the morning, something like that. And so we get in, they are trying to get my IVs in and stuff like that. I was super dehydrated, which was not a good thing. Number one tip that I can possibly give when you are like really feeling like you're in labor, chug water like crazy. And I remember they had told us this in our birthing classes, like every contraction basically chug some water down, and I wasn't doing it and listening. But like make your partner, whoever you have with you for labor and delivery, make them make sure you are chugging water left and right, because I tell you, getting the IV was probably the worst part of the whole labor and delivery process, because they had poked me everywhere. I had bruises covering my arms, covering my hands, from how many times they had to like try to get in there because they couldn't find my veins because my veins were so dehydrated. So finally they get it, and I get hooked up. They're pumping fluids into me. I'm still feeling the contractions at that point. I really had wanted to go through it without getting an epidural, but I did not, because I felt like I wasn't mentally as prepared as I should have been, and I hadn't really done enough like research and things like that to try to find coping mechanisms to help get through the contractions. And so I wound up probably about an hour or so after being there. I got to a 5, I want to say, and then they checked me again, and an hour later, and I was still sitting at a 5. And I just knew that I was tensing up, I wasn't relaxed, and I wasn't just letting the contractions do what they're supposed to do. And so because of that, I feel like my body wasn't responding right. And so I made the decision to go ahead and get the epidural because I just felt like it would be the only thing that would help my body relax and help me get to the point of actually being able to progress into really having a baby. The scary thing was that as soon as I got the epidural, Eliana's heart rate like dropped to a level that they weren't comfortable with, and I think my oxygen levels dropped a little bit. And so the nurses come into the room, they make me, I was lying on the hospital bed at this point, and they come into the room, they make me flip over onto all fours. They had just given me the epidural, and so it hadn't fully set in yet, so I could still kind of like be a little bit more mobile. So they made me flip over, got on all fours, they put oxygen on me, and I was rocking, they made me like rock back and forth to help her with, I guess, getting into a better position and getting my oxygen where it needed to be, creating better flow, something like that. And so that's what they made me do, and it worked. So they had me lie back down, and I basically just hung out like that until around the time frame where they came in. They broke my water about maybe a couple of hours after I got the epidural. I periodically had to go and put oxygen back on because her heart rate kept dropping, and so every so often they'd come in, they'd be like, all right, let's put the oxygen back on. So I'd get on the oxygen for a little bit, her heart rate would go back up, and then I could take it off, and then I wound up just having to wear it for pretty much the duration of labor, and then I think I wore it when I was delivering her too. And so they would periodically come in, make sure I was doing okay, check on me. I was just so freaked out about her heart rate dropping. Like Caleb was kind of dozing in the corner a couple of times, but I could not sleep because of her heart rate, how it kept dropping, and it just was really scary. Especially, I've never gone through this before, I've never experienced it. And so I just like was watching the monitors like a hawk, like literally my head the entire time, my neck hurt so bad because like the entire time I was just like turned looking at the monitor. I would not take my eyes off of it to watch her heart rate because for whatever reason I added in my head that I'm watching her heart rate, so that means that she's okay. And so that's what I kept doing, and I got no rest. I was so tired just because I hadn't slept at all. We were in like the early hours, probably like 5, 6, 7 in the morning. And so I was exhausted, but there was no way. I was like, no, I'm not sleeping. I can't. How can I? Her heart rate keeps dropping. They keep having to put this on me. Like, I can't. There's no way. And so they, like I said, periodically were coming in, especially after they broke my water, to come check me, make sure that I was still moving. And I really progressed fairly well at that point after getting the epidural. I really was dilating at a pretty steady pace. And so probably around, I don't know, like 10, a little after 10 o'clock, they come in, they check me again, and I was finally at the point to where I could start pushing. I had fully dilated, she was good, she was where she needed to be. They had switched nurses at 7, and so I had a new nurse at that point. My doctor had come in and she had checked on me earlier. It was funny because the nurse that I had who took over after the shift change happened was actually the nurse who helped with delivering my doctor's kids, and my doctor came in and she was telling me that. And so it made me feel even better about like the team I had who was there to help with bringing our sweet little girl into the world. And so she comes back in, she's checking me, she's like, okay, so we're gonna get ready. So they, of course, pull the bed up a little bit, get those stirrup things out and put my legs up. They tell Caleb what he's supposed to be doing, like you're gonna hold this leg and we're gonna hold here. This is how you're gonna push. And I remember them like getting there and they were like, okay, all right, I think this is time, let's get going. And my nurse was like, all right, what you're gonna do is you're gonna push like you're pooping. And I was like, all right, okay, and I'm gonna try. A lot of women talk about feeling like the pressure and stuff like that, which I remember feeling. And my epidural had started wearing off. And so probably about an hour before this, I had been like really pushing the epidural button because that's what they had told me to do to give myself more of the medicine so that I wouldn't be feeling the contractions again. So I don't feel like I 100% felt the pressure, but I could somewhat still feel it. But I just remember, all right, I'm gonna do what she's telling me to do. And I'm just the kind of person who like, you give me instructions and you tell me how to do something, and I'm gonna do it like to a T the way you tell me to do it. And that's what I did. And I don't know if that helped or what, because I know some women go through, especially when it's their first baby, like really a long duration of hours and hours of pushing and stuff like that. And I just sit here and I'm like, I pushed for maybe 15, 20 minutes. It was like 4 pushes. I remember I pushed the first time and she was like, all right, that was really good. You did a great job. We're going to give it a couple of more pushes and then we'll call the doctor after we see, you know, if you're making progress. So I pushed one more time and she was like, oh my gosh, call the doctor. Get the doctor in here now. And so my doctor, she was like, okay, we're going to hold off because the doctor's not here yet. I don't want you pushing, okay? So my doctor hadn't gotten there. It probably took her about like 10 minutes or so to get over there, 10, 15 minutes, because the way my hospital is like my doctor's office is in a building and the hospital is right here. So she just like runs across the street basically, or they probably have like a walkway for her to walk across to get into there. And so she gets there probably about 10 minutes, 15 minutes afterwards. And then we did 2 more pushes and Eliana was in the world. And it was honestly the most magical and most amazing day of my life. It's so crazy, like looking back on it. With her, she did have, when they broke my water, they had noticed that there was meconium in there. And so I really didn't get to do like immediate skin to skin contact with her, because basically as soon as she came out, like they put her on my chest and they started cleaning her up, but then they took her right away because they had to flush out her lungs in case she had swallowed some. And so they were flushing her out. They were checking her. I remember just like, is she okay? Is she okay? What's going on? Because I didn't have my baby, you know? And my doctor was at the end of the hospital bed, like my placenta, I was delivering the placenta and she had to stitch me up because I did have a 2nd-degree tear. And so my doctor just kept telling me, look at the baby, focus on your baby. She's gonna be okay. She's all right. And I just remember hearing her little cries. And of course, like I'm crying because I'm like, I just want my baby in my arms. But they got her well taken care of. They got her cleaned up and she was good to go. They brought her over to me. And I just remember looking at this sweet little bundle and just not, like, it's so unreal when you sit back and you think, I did it. Like, I did that. I got to be a part of creating a new life. Like, how exciting is that? I just think it's the coolest thing in the world. I've always been so fascinated and just so in awe of like pregnancy and labor and delivery and stuff like that, because to me, it's just the coolest miracle ever. So that is my labor and delivery story for my daughter, kind of like a quicker version of it, not like 100% detail oriented because it has been almost 4 years, but I still like feel like I remember it pretty well. But I hope that if you have labor and delivery coming up for you soon, the biggest tip and advice that I could ever offer out is just to really tune in with yourself and listen. And don't let a lot of outside influence penetrate you too much. Yes, it's good to listen to, of course, like advice from your doctor, and of course friends and family members want to throw in their 2 cents and, you know, share information with you. And I know it always comes from the best place, but at the end of the day, you have to do what you feel is right for yourself and for your baby. I don't even know what my story would have been like if I had wound up getting an induction. I could have wound up having so many things go wrong and so many things not turn out the way that they did. And I just truly believe that because I sat back and I knew that it wasn't the right thing to do, I listened to what God was telling me and instructing me to do. And I 100% believe that that's why things flowed and went as smoothly as they did. Of course, it wasn't like perfect, but nothing in this world is. And I think it's unrealistic to try to expect this perfect labor and delivery because it's not going to go that way. And to be willing to move and go with the flow because it's not going to be perfect. You can have a birth plan all set into place. You can have so many thoughts for I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this. But when you're in that moment and when you're feeling those contractions and when you are, you know, just in a totally different mental space because you're in the middle of trying to give birth to a baby, just listen to yourself and listen to your instincts. You'll know what to do. I know it sounds crazy and you might not believe it. I know I didn't, but it's so true. You'll know what to do. You will know how you feel. And at the end of the day, do what is ultimately going to give you the end result of a healthy baby and you being healthy, because that's all that matters. You know, the story and how they come along is such a great thing to look back on. But at the end of the day, as long as you are healthy and your baby is healthy sitting in your arms, what more could you ask for, right? So, like I said, I hope this gave you just some encouragement, some tips and advice for, you know, labor and delivery, a little more insight into maybe what to expect. I'm excited to see how things go for labor and delivery being a second-time mom. I feel definitely more like at ease and not nervous like I did when I was pregnant with Eliana. It's just one of those things where I'm like, all right, we got this and we can do this. And I'm telling you, for any moms who are watching this who have babies coming up, like, you got it, you can do it. You are going to be totally fine. You'll be amazed at what your body can accomplish. So like I said, hope this gave you some encouragement. I hope and pray for healthy, safe deliveries for any of you guys who have labor right around the corner, or even if you're like sitting at this only 3 months pregnant. I hope and pray for a healthy, beautiful baby, that you are healthy through it all, and that you can look back and just realize what an amazing thing you were able to accomplish in bringing life into this world. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining and listening to these long chats that I like to go through. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up if you did, and until next time, I will see you guys later.